After the tragic downfall of the House of Marbas at the hands of House Sylvester, the young lord of House Marbas is forced to take his father's life under the command of Count Alan de Sylvester, the lord of House Sylvester, a rival clan to House Marbas. It was a tragic day when the hands of young Lord Leon were stained by his own father's blood. With the head of the family gone, Leon Marbas is now next in line to become the new head of this declining family, the same family which once revered as the best house of necromancy. Now that he is the head of House Marbas, Leon is leading a conference with the other nobles residing in House Marbas territory. The nobles raise their concerns about their rival, House Sylvester, who is steadily taking control of Marbas territory day by day. There's no telling when they might invade Marbas's territory completely. One noble insists Leon bolster their defenses. As they continue their insistence, Leon politely shuts them off, urging them to practice patience, especially since decisions like these require more time to consider. But the nobles persist, believing that they are running out of time. But Leon strongly believes that unwise decisions may bode ill for his great House of Marbas. After the meeting ends, Leon reflects on how, with the demise of his father, Lord Rune von Marbas, he, Leon von Marbas, rose to the seat of Patriarch of House Marbas at the tender age of 14. House Marbas was once feared as a powerful clan of necromancers, though that reputation has long since faded into the annals of history. Since Leon lacks much experience in governing, he wants to seek guidance. He wonders what his parents would have done in a critical situation like this. While Leon knows that his parents won't respond to his call, for the dead tell no tales, and his parents can offer no wisdom from beyond the grave, he is still in sore need of guidance. He longs to figure out how he might restore glory and prosperity to his house. Leon walks to the office that once belonged to Wellen von Marbas, the founding progenitor of House Marbas, who also held the title of the sole necromancer of the continent during his time. It is said that House Marbas first rose to prominence because the original patriarch made his name on the battlefield. However, ever since the heyday of their founding patriarch, the lineage of Marbas has struggled to produce another full-fledged necromancer, leading the family's fortune down a path of decline. And as fate would have it, Leon was even forced to take his own father's life. Once inside the room, Leon picks up the book that chronicles their lineage. The founding Marbas patriarch, Wellen von Marbas, was a near-mythical figure. With a wave of his hand, he would sweep away his foes like a lethal tempest, summoning waves of the undead in an unrelenting death march. In just 2 months, the eastern region had been subjugated under his conquest. It is said that Wellen von Marbas struck a pact with the devil Marbas, unlocking one of the continent's greatest mysteries and secrets regarding necromancy. And it was possible all through the dread tome Necronomicon, which granted him the power to rule as the sovereign of the continent. And this book in front of Leon is the Necronomicon itself, a priceless heirloom passed down from their progenitor, the very tome that led to the rise of House Marbas as the sole family of necromancers on the continent. As Leon opens the book, he hears a commanding voice speaking to him. Startled, Leon realizes this mysterious voice is telepathic, but what puzzles him is how he's able to hear it, especially since the Patriarch's office is surrounded by an anti-magic field. Nonetheless, he responds, wanting to know whom he's speaking to. The voice echoes ominously, assuring him not to be afraid, as it poses no threat to him or his kin. Leon isn't sure if he should trust the words of something so mysterious that he can't even see. Suddenly, Leon begins to drift into another dimension. It is then that a giant mythical lion materializes right before him. The first thing Leon asks this creature is where exactly they are. Hearing this, the lion realizes that Leon seems unaware of mighty black lion's existence, which suggests that his predecessors likely never told him about such creatures. The lion remembers Leon's father, Rune, but it notices that the thread of mana binding his father to the lion has been severed. Growling, the lion remarks that Rune was such a kind-hearted man for the lord of a dark house, so his demise isn't all that surprising. The lion then asks Leon who dealt the fatal blow to his father. Without hesitation, Leon confirms that it was he who took his father's life. This causes the lion to roar in anger. But before doing anything lethal to Leon, the lion asks him once again if he is the one who slew his oath-bound contractor. Leon's response remains the same, claiming that he is the one who ended his father's life. The lion goes into a furious frenzy. A dark and crimson fluid strikes Leon, through which the lion peeks into the events of the past related to Leon. Seeing how Leon looks completely expressionless and deadpan before and after killing his father, the lion realizes that Leon has been stripped of his senses. The hands that cut the rope of guillotine may have been Leon's, but that does not mean he is the one who killed his father. However, Leon insists that he is responsible for it, and there is no point in denying this truth. This is then that the Black Lion senses something more profound in Leon than just despair. He notices an ominous aura radiating from him, an aura so overwhelming that even the great lion begins to cower like a kitten. By now, the lion has no doubt now that Leon will surpass his ancestors. The lion then gets a little humble and proceeds to introduce himself. He claims to be Marbas, one of the 72 demons of hell. He is the one who turned his back on the demonic realm and chose to exist alongside humankind instead. His first lifelong friend was Wellen von Marbas. He also claims to be the source of the necromancy that became the unique art of House Marbas. Hearing this, Leon remembers that he's heard these tales before. Leon already knows that when their progenitor founded House Marbas, this lion was the one who taught him the forbidden art of necromancy. The lion confirms this statement, adding that he is now bound to the Necronomicon, though he was a formidable demon before his binding. Leon also recalls how their founding patriarch often told them that necromancy is in Marbas's blood. So, it makes no sense to Leon why Marbas, the great lion, abandoned House Marbas eventually. The lion quickly senses the animosity Leon harbors and questions him about it. Leon expresses his concern. Since the time of their progenitor, House Marbas has not produced a necromancer of his caliber. The only reason Leon can think of is that the great lion abandoned them. The lion makes one thing clear. The reason why Leon and his kin have been unable to wield the true might of a necromancer is that they are too weak to perform the role of a fitting vessel. None of Wellen's descendants hold a candle to the sheer talent Wellen possessed. The only thing holding House Marbas back is the decline in their bloodline. After a moment of contemplation, Leon is ready to acknowledge what the lion is saying. After all, it's been nature's law that the strong devour the weak. This is one reason he doesn't feel much remorse about his father's passing, especially since he had nothing special to offer. That said, Leon decides to take the burden of what his father was supposed to do onto his own shoulders. Since Marbas, the black lion, claims he hasn't turned his back on them, Leon requires this lion to do him a favor. But the lion reminds our boy that a favor is an act of kindness, where one party only stands to make a loss. Being a demon, the lion prefers a pact or a deal rather than doing a favor. In this case, Leon decides to make a pact for the power of necromancy. He further strikes a nail into the lion's ego by questioning whether this mighty creature is even capable of granting such power. The lion acts somewhat annoyed at Leon throwing shade over his capabilities. For the lion, the most important question is whether Leon is even capable of wielding such magnificent power. Leon doesn't hesitate to confirm this. He feels more than entitled. Had he been some talentless peon, he would never have been permitted to exchange with a lofty demon such as this black lion. It is said that ordinary folk need only converse with a demon before they are robbed of all mana, suffer hallucinations, and ultimately lose their life. The fact that Leon remains standing means he must possess at least some modicum of potential to be worth the attention of this great lion. The lion admits that Leon is certainly not ordinary. He also seems to possess a measure of grit to boot. With this in mind, the black lion is ready for the pact. However, since it's a pact, Leon will have to offer something in return. Leon is willing to offer anything the lion desires and asks what the lion's price may be. The lion laughs before boldly demanding that he need every facet of Leon's being. This demand comes as music to Leon's ears, as he is more than willing to surrender every part of his meager existence to a mighty demon like Marbas. The scene then cuts to a conference between all of Marbas' household nobles. The only person absent is our boy, partly because of the fact that he was not invited. The white-bearded man, known as Sir Kernshal, speaks his concerns to his fellow nobles. He boldly declares how Lord Leon commands little authority to make decisions of grave importance that affect the entire house. He is sure that his other fellows agree with this assumption as well. The others stay quiet, and their silence is a sort of confirmation to his point. In this case, Sir Kernshal plans to take charge of all matters concerning the house for the foreseeable future. He believes he should be in charge because he is the uncle of Lord Leon, which makes him the closest kin of the current patriarch. With that, he gives the others the chance to speak if anyone has a problem with him taking the position as steward of the house. One man quickly supports Sir Kernshal, believing it would be unwise to oppose him, given that the alternative is a mere pup who hasn't even come of age yet. He certainly doesn't want to leave crucial decisions up to an unworthy child like Leon. Slowly but surely, the others vote for Sir Kernshal to take control of family affairs for now. But one fat man shows his disapproval. He believes that Lord Leon is the only direct descendant of the previous patriarch, and there is no precedent in their family history for appointing the next patriarch in violation of direct lineage. In response, one man glares in disapproval. He believes that what good is lineage when their entire family might be wiped out. The armies of those Sylvester brigands are marching against Marbas as they speak. While he does recognize the fatty's concerns about birthright, it's all pointless when they're all going to die following an incompetent blindly. But the fat man continues to disapprove of his friend's actions. He believes that every last one of them sitting here is only because they were granted a place at this table by the grace of his late lordship. So everyone here owes it to the house to fight to the very last. Even if the sitting patriarch has yet to gather his own faction, the fat man will not stand by and watch his uncle, Sir Kernchal, take Leon's rightful place as heir. By the way, this fat man's name is Pullen, and he seems to be a loyal follower of the previous patriarch. At this, Sir Kernchal stands up, acknowledging how the current patriarch seems to have at least one loyal follower. Pullen tells Sir Kernchal to cut the crap and come clean about what he really wants to say. Sir Kernchal snaps back with a sharp tone. As loyal as Pullen may be, Kernchal believes he lacks the shrewdness to see that it's a done deal. He walks over to Pullen and places his hand on his shoulder, exuding a menacing aura while threatening Pullen to think before speaking. He reminds him that everyone is gathered here for one purpose alone, to make an unsavory choice that would nonetheless be the least of all evils for the house. So he suggests that the fat man avoid standing in the way of their survival, because one wrong decision could lead to everyone's slaughter. We then cut back to the Black Lion and Leon in their intense negotiations. The Lion speaks of how, with this change in the subject of the pact, the true extent of his power has been curtailed. He also recalls how soft and naive Leon's father Rune was. As his contractor, his father possessed a far greater mana reserve than Leon does now. Speaking of mana, Leon remembers that any demon who makes a pact with a human must draw magic energy from their contractor to replenish their own reserve. So Leon questions the Lion about what he's going to do in this situation. The Black Lion snaps his fingers and transforms into a cute little puffy cat, claiming that this will be less draining to maintain. Leon is relieved that with this new form, the Black Lion will be easily mistaken for an adorable pet instead of a terrifying demon. Being called an adorable pet does not sit well with the Lion, so he gives Leon a deadly glare, exuding a threatening aura for calling him that. Anyway, the Lion decides that it's finally time for them to proceed with the next step. Leon is confused and curious, asking what comes next. The Black Lion questions Leon in response, wondering if he has forgotten that he wanted to obtain strength that would rival even their progenitor. Leon admits that he does indeed want that power. The Lion reminds him that the only way to acquire that power and ascend to the same heights as their progenitor is to follow in his footsteps. So, they will be making their journey to the hidden shrine of the progenitor. But before they begin the journey, the Lion warns Leon that it may claim his life, so he wants to know if Leon still consents. Leon simply gives this clueless expression upon hearing how the Lion continues to undermine his resolve. Anyway, the Lion begins to walk on his tiny paws to lead the way. After their short journey, Leon finds himself traversing through the thick forest, the mist woods of House Marbas if I have to be specific. The Black Lion reveals that this forest can be an inscrutable labyrinth for those who are not of the Marbas bloodline. Leon seems to already have a clue about this because his father had told him that only the rightful patriarch may set foot inside the secret shrine itself. But there's still something that doesn't make sense to Leon. If this place was supposed to grant his predecessors the power of necromancy, why has House Marbas failed to produce successful necromancers? The Lion reveals the reason behind it. Not a single one of them had been able to pass the trial. This is the most fundamental requirement if one is to walk the path to acquiring great necromancy power. No one to date has been able to satisfy this first condition and make it through the fog. Once they arrive at the designated location, the Lion raises his tiny paw, signaling Leon to stop. This is where they are about to begin their trial. The trial is simple. Leon has to descend into the mines. But before venturing deep into the uncharted territories, the Lion makes it clear that he would not be able to lend any helping hand. This will be a test of Leon's mettle. The Lion promises one last piece of advice. He urges Leon to follow the Necronomicon's instructions at all times, especially since it holds the key to the power Leon seeks, the power of necromancy. As Leon ventures deeper, he suddenly comes across the green creatures we commonly call goblins. But these goblins aren't the only thing here. There's also a lady captured by these bastards who seem to take pleasure in tormenting women. At that moment, the Necronomicon reacts. It claps, then opens, and the scene focuses on a verse written on one of its pages. The verse says, "The path to mastering necromancy begins with the secret to reanimating the dead." Meanwhile, the goblins are ready to attack Leon. He notices another verse encouraging him to take the lives of the living to start his journey. Since he's supposed to follow the Necronomicon's commands, Leon unsheathes his blade and stands tall against the goblins, who quickly charge at him with their weapons. Leon swings his short sword, cutting down one of the goblins right away, which counts as his first kill. The scene then takes us to the past, where Leon stands alongside his father in a cemetery. His father wants him to listen carefully to what he's about to say. In the great house of Marbas, his father reminds him that the entity most revered by their clan is death itself. The Marbas house is a clan of necromancers with dominion over the undead. For them, reversing death is held in the highest regard. At that moment, Leon wonders if reversing death is even possible. He had always thought that necromancers had to take lives to gain power whether they wanted to or not. His father affirms that the dark mages are feared by many across the continent. However, that doesn't mean they must become heartless villains. His father asks Leon to promise that, no matter who he faces in battle, if he holds power over life or death, he will make their end as peaceful as possible. This question lingers in Leon's mind, and sometimes he finds himself questioning whether he still has to keep his word with every foe he encounters. Back in the present, as Leon stands surrounded by these filthy creatures, that same question echoes in his mind. After all, he doesn't believe that creatures as vile as these deserve anything less than a painful death. But the most humane way to deal with them, he decides, is to aim for the cervical vertebrae with deadly precision. It's the quickest way to end them with the least amount of pain. Meanwhile, the Black Lion is simply amazed after witnessing our boy snag his first kill effortlessly. While it doesn't seem like Leon has much experience with a sword, he struck the vertebra with godly accuracy. For a moment, the Lion King considers that it might have been luck, or maybe a natural gift. But with more goblins charging, the Black Lion knows he'll soon find out. We shift our focus back to Leon. In the back of his mind, even he believes that his recent kill was more luck than skill. He's sure it's going to be a challenge fighting these green creatures. After all, goblins are shrewd and devious by nature. And to make matters worse, the visibility is poor. It's going to get even darker as he continues to slay one goblin after another. He notices that the torch flickers out with each goblin he kills. He realizes he needs to get used to the darkness while he still can. Instead of cutting through the enemy, he shifts his focus to piercing and dislodging with precision. He starts his killing spree, and with each goblin he takes down, one more fire flickers out. While it's getting dark, Leon's eyes are adjusting so he can see well enough now. The only concern on his mind is the condition of his dagger, which is taking damage from the clashes. But he didn't expect much more from a ceremonial blade. Suddenly, a goblin leaps into the air to strike him, but Leon quickly retaliates by throwing his blade at the charging opponent, slicing its cheek. Seeing how Leon just discarded the only weapon he had catches the Black Lion off guard. It's insane to think he just discarded his weapon in the middle of the fight. But the reason Leon threw his sword was simple. He wanted to grab a bigger, sharper blade. Once he has it, he swings it with deadly precision, slashing the goblin and ending the threat. With the danger neutralized, he walks toward the damsel in distress and begins untying her. The woman is immensely grateful, finally rescued by a hero straight out of a fairy tale. But the ending of her story is not so sunshine and roses. Before the woman can even finish expressing her gratitude, Leon pierces her right in the middle of the chest. The moment his blade lands, Leon is reminded of a piece of advice his father once gave him. He spoke of monsters with the ability to mimic human beings, which he had encountered during his travels across the continents. Leon stabs her again mercilessly, causing her to groan in pain. The reason for this unexpected second stab are once again his father's words. He had specifically told Leon that those who deceive and exploit the trust of others do not deserve a peaceful death. They must experience the same fear and despair their victims felt. And so, Leon believes this woman deserves to learn that lesson through suffering. As he begins his torture, her screams echo through the dungeon. With her death, the last torch is extinguished. The scene shifts to a hotel where dancers are performing, and Sir Kershaw is running the show, surrounded by women. Sir Kershaw is having a blast, fully convinced that the Marbas household will soon be under his command. The woman to his left is equally confident, thinking a gentleman like Sir Kershaw is far more suited for the role of head of the household than a baby-faced boy like Leon. The girls around them continue to flatter him, and Sir Kershaw is enjoying the praise. He believes he's the lesser evil compared to Leon, who would drag House Marbas to extinction. Sir Kershaw is certain that his rise to power is the best thing for the house. While this shit-ass having a laughter full of joy, the brown-haired man wonders how they'll deal with Leon. The people of the estate were fiercely loyal to Leon's father, which could make it harder to dispose of him. But Sir Kershaw reassures him, promising that he already has a plan. He will make Leon's demise seem justified after the fact. Since dead men tell no tales, framing Leon with lies will be easy. The brown-haired man is glad to hear this. After all, the last time anyone heard from the dead man was centuries ago, when the founding patriarch wielded the power of necromancy. With a toast, they celebrate the success they believe is coming. Meanwhile, we cut to Lord Alan de Sylvester of House Sylvester. He's questioning his men about the progress of their plan to subjugate Marbas. One of his men reports that Sir Kershaw is essentially a pawn working under House Sylvester. Now, they just need the official approval for all-out warfare from the imperial household. Count Alan is thoroughly enjoying himself. He finds it laughable that House Marbas is under the impression that their enemy won't launch an attack when it hasn't been long since the first conflict. Alan's lackeys shower him with praise, acknowledging that none of this would have been possible without their leader's remarkable foresight. He also makes sure to give credit to Sir Kershaw, who, in Alan's eyes, is playing right into his enemy's hands. To think that the centuries-long history of House Marbas will end at the hands of a short-sighted traitor, it's almost too entertaining for Count Alan. He orders his men to hasten the preparations. Count Alan feels like he's on a streak of good luck. First, that fool of a father who got his head chopped off by his own son. Now the son himself will be next. But little does he know, the lamb he's talking about is preparing to turn himself into a literal goat. Back in the dungeon, Leon has just finished off the last of the monsters, and the dungeon is pitch black with all the torches snuffed out. This means she was the last monster he needed to kill. Just as he says this, the torches reignite, much to Leon's relief. The Black Lion, meanwhile, is absolutely thrilled to have Leon as his contractor. He leaps over Leon, causing him to fall into the pool of blood. The lion is driven by the power Leon possesses, enough to wipe out an entire camp of orcs single-handedly. He's amazed that not only did Leon see through the monster's disguise, but he also pierced its seemingly indestructible body. While Leon appreciates the compliment, he'd rather avoid confronting orcs, as he's been told they despise humans above all else. Still, the Black Lion is fascinated by how Leon managed to see through the disguise. He wants to know how he did it. The answer, Leon thinks, is simple. When all the other torches went out, one remained lit. The key thing was that the light of that torch was a different color. It was green, the color of the dead. With each monster he killed, the torches flickered out one by one. And sure enough, the last torch stayed lit until the end. That was enough of a hint for Leon to realize the woman was a monster in disguise, and he killed her accordingly. The Black Lion is even more excited now. Normally, he wouldn't expect a boy so young to deduce so much under such dire circumstances. When one's life is at stake, it's difficult enough to read the situation, let alone spring into action without hesitation. And yet, Leon did exactly that, dispatching all the enemies by himself without a hitch by using sheer brains. While the Black Lion was initially concerned about Leon's mana reserves, he now believes that one's potential shouldn't be measured solely by mana capacity. He's certain that Leon is hiding something special, something extraordinary that excites him even more. He's now looking forward to seeing what new tricks Leon might show next. Now that Leon has completed his first trial, it's time to move on to the next. His first task was to take the life of a living being, and now that he has succeeded, the Necronomicon instructs him to raise the fallen. Thinking about it, Leon can only interpret this as needing to create undead from the goblins he just slaughtered. And with that, he is about to take his first true step toward becoming an undefeated necromancer. This realization excites him beyond measure. Leon uncovers the path of necromancy laid before him. The little furball of doom and destruction implores him to gaze towards the defeated goblins before directing a column of mana into his vision. This will then allow a path of threads to weave and attach themselves to the bodies. Following those instructions, Leon successfully manages to find and connect each thread to the goblins. These threads are known as death lines. They hover over the bounds of death, each thread linking the soul from this world into the next world. Marbas explains that a necromancer's specialty lies in separating the souls from the bodies of the dead, confirming the extraction ritual, and after imbuing those souls with their own mana, the necromancer successfully commences the reanimation magic. This is quickly showcased as the goblins resurrected with a dark aura, bounded by a crest on top of their heads. Marbas gives him a visual representation by using one of the goblins to attack Leon, only to stop the goblin's attack at the last second. The demon labels this part of the process as branding. And while there were multiple ways of resurrecting the undead, this particular method favored on monsters. The demon promises to delve into the details of other forms of necromancy later on. Leon takes a stand, having learned something new from the tutorial. Now, it's his turn to fully repeat the process. But before that, a question lingers in his mind. Referencing his predecessor's words, Leon talks about how it is way more complex to resurrect a human instead of a monster. Right now, he's curious to know if he's at the level where he can safely resurrect a human into one of his undead warriors.